Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's ClearPath LeaderCast. I'm Craig Anderson, the president of ClearPath Coaching and Consulting. Glad some of you could join us as we wait for people to kind of jump on here. Talk a little bit about what's going on with ClearPath Coaching and Consulting. This week, we're spending quite a bit of time talking about job descriptions, and we'll jump into that discussion around job descriptions in just a minute. Just for your information, my background is I spent about 30 years in corporate America, had an interesting path through corporate America coming out of college with a degree in English and having to learn a lot about what it takes to run a company without having a lot of that formal background in my past. So a lot of what I did over my career was watch and learn about what made those companies successful. And a lot of it was having a really good focus on numbers and detail. A lot of what makes those companies successful is their planning process and thinking about where they're going, and also around getting the right people in the right places in the organization. So I really watched that, learned from that over time, had the opportunity to spin off a business from a larger parent company and really built that in. That helped us grow that business successfully over just a few years until we sold that business, which is when I launched ClearPath Coaching and Consulting, because I was able to successfully take those things and scale them to the small business framework and get the tools in place to do that effectively. And now my real mission is to help leaders, what I call accidental leaders, those who didn't really intend to be in leadership, but found themselves there either through a successful small business that grew and transformed them into leaders, or they were successful in their corporate life and moved up and suddenly find themselves in positions of leadership, to go from those accidental leader roles to the confident executive or confident owner who really has a handle on how to lead people and lead their business. So that's what we do here at ClearPath Coaching and Consulting. We talk about these issues a lot. If you're watching this through our Facebook group, ClearPath Leaders Forum, we have these both streamed live every week, as well as a lot of other content and discussion that goes on in there. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, I'd encourage you to click that or type in that link here at the bottom on clearpathcoaches.com/community and join us in the ClearPath Leaders Forum. So let's talk about what we're going to focus on today. If you have comments or questions as we go through, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll address those. But welcome to everybody who's here so far. If you guys are ready to go, give me a like or a thumbs up, and we're ready to go here. So what we're going to talk about today is job descriptions. And I submit that job descriptions as they exist today are useless for getting things moving and where we need to go for our business. Job descriptions have become these very legal documents that have things like, you will spend 25% of your time doing this and 10% doing this. And quite frankly, in my experience, 6 months, 12 months into the job, what was on that description that you looked at isn't even relevant to what you do every day. You come to realize that what I'm expected to do in my role has very little to do with that job description, and jobs evolve and change. But what I really think we need to do is focus on how do we create job descriptions that help our prospective candidates for roles, and people in those roles to really understand why their position exists, what it is they are tasked to do, not in a very rote way, but to understand the vision of what it is we're trying to get to. Because we want, as we look to what's going to make companies successful, and what I learned about what makes companies successful, one of those factors is engaged employees who align themselves with the mission of the business. Well, if they don't even really understand that going through the process of applying for a role or promoting into a role, then we're not going to get them there. So what I'm going to do over the next 10, 15 minutes, and for those of you who are new to this is always about 10 or 15 minutes, is I'm going to talk about a new vision for what a job description can be, so that you can promote that job and get the right people into your organization who are going to be aligned with the mission and vision, who fully know what they're walking into in that role and what they're going to need to be doing to be successful in that role. That's what's crucial for people to really be successful in your organization. So let's start out with what I propose as kind of a 5-step framework for what an effective job description is. So 1, it's going to come to you in 5 parts. 2, we want to focus it in so it fits on 1 page. We want something that you can hand to somebody who knows nothing about your industry or business and can see that job description and say, I know somebody like that. I fully understand what it is you're trying to do with that role. I challenge you to do that with any traditional job description, to have people really understand deeply what they're going to be able to do. So, and also I will say right out of the gate, I'm sure the HR people in the world and the legal people in the world are going to tell me what I propose is not what you need legally, and that's fine. Create whatever that thing is you need to check the box for legal reasons. What I'm talking about is creating a job description that gets your people aligned, that gets the right people attracted to your role. So let's start out with part one of the 5-part framework that I propose you start using for your job descriptions. Part one is to create a vision statement for the role. And we get into a lot of equivocation about what a vision statement is. So let me say what I mean in this purpose is what I want to do is create a vision for what you are tasking this person to build over the next 3 years as they sit in that role. I always hired people and it said, look, I know we're in a world where jobs change, people move companies. This is not my grandfather who worked, 50 years for Ford. People move around a lot. So I always ask people, I would like you to join us. And if you stay longer, great, but I'm asking you for a 3-year commitment to help me transform this business. So I look to say, here's the vision of what I want you to have accomplished 3 years from now. And I encourage you to build specificity in that around if it's a number of employees or a revenue target or an efficiency target. Describe very clearly in a narrative form, 5 or 6 lines, maybe 9 lines about what they will look like successfully in that role 3 years from now. What will they have built? Processes they'll have in place, number of people, a budget number they're hitting, a revenue number they're hitting, or an expense saving number that they're hitting. Get really descriptive. We want to create a narrative and a vision of what that job's going to look like as a success in 3 years. So they know what they're stepping into when they make that 3-year commitment to you. So let's tell them very clearly, this is what I'm hiring you to build. I'm hiring you to build my operations team into an organization that looks like this. I'm looking to hire you in to help me generate revenue that looks like this. So we want to be very descriptive of that. So that's part one, is to create that effective vision statement for what I want that person to do over the next 3 years. Step two is let's get into kind of just a mission statement. We talk about mission statement for companies, mission statements for companies. What's the mission statement for this role? Why does this job exist? We want to answer in probably 8 to 12 words why this job exists. And you're going to say, well, Craig, that's stupid. A sales VP exists to be a sales VP. But what is it that you want them to do? What is the mission? I created this role because I want you to generate revenue from key constituents in our target market, or something to that effect. I want to build your mission. Your job exists as a VP of operations to build a collaborative culture in a highly efficient environment. Something that really says this is why this job exists. Give them the mission. Help them understand the mission they're undertaking, right? I'm a big Star Trek guy. What's the 5-year mission? So what's the 3-year mission? What is it that I want you to build, to do? And that's the next step, is creating that mission statement for why that position exists. Then we're going to start to get a little bit more to brass tacks on what we're looking at. So if we know where we want you to be in 3 years, I have a pretty good idea of what I want you to have accomplished in the first year. What are those 5 to 7 things that I'm going to measure for you and put on a graph? So what are the numbers that when I'm looking for your success in the role after year 1, that we're both going to look at each other across the table and say, we hit it, we exceeded it, we missed it, whatever that is. But let's get agreement up front. Why wouldn't you want, and maybe you don't want to distribute this to the hundreds of people who apply for your job, and I would agree with that, but you're going to get down to a core set of finalists. So what do we want to communicate to those finalists to say, this is what success looks like after year 1. Are you willing to sign up for this? And that leads to some great conversations about what the challenges and opportunities are for that in your interview process. So understand where they're going to be able to step up for this. And they're going to sign on a dotted line. That's what they're agreeing to. So let's get that piece in place so people know what they're going to be expected to do and what success looks like. Now, if you're doing the A game version of this, and you get that successful person hired, you may tweak some of that when they get in place, but you're going to check in with this every month to see how they're progressing, right? That's how we know we're moving along towards a goal. The other piece that I would want to do after I get those things lined up is say, look, here is the how I want you to do this role, not in a prescriptive micromanaging way, but here's our culture. Here's the culture I want to create. So in that culture, that's what this looks like in this role. How you hire, if it's sales, how you sell, the kinds of people we sell to, how I want you to deal with employees, how I want you to motivate and drive success within the context of the culture of my organization. So these how statements are 5 to 7 key things within your cultural framework, within the way your business runs, for how they're going to do things. So often I see people step into roles and fail because they don't have an understanding of how the business is going to be run. So let's put that within the context of that role for how the business is run and what that translates to in the role. And again, we want to give them the broad stroke frameworks. We're not getting down to you will meet with people every hour, every day for this many days. But what we want to do is we encourage you to have an open door relationship with your employees through constant communication, open door policies, and proactive feedback, right? Give them the cultural context of how you want them to work this job effectively. So that's the next piece, is to give them those pieces. So now they know, okay, this is how I'm going to be expected to roll, because maybe they come from a company, and they still exist, by the way, where micromanaging is the way they want the business done. So is that what do you want somebody who's coming from that, who knows how to do that really well, and it's ingrained in them, to come into your culture, which is very much not that? No, let them know this is how we operate so that they know what they're walking into. And again, when you start getting into the hows you want the role done, that's going to lead to better conversations, better questions, and better engagement in your interview process, so you can really zero in on the things that matter. And then the last piece is to say, look, candidate, these are the big objectives. This is how I want you to run the business. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to measure you for success in these objectives. But there's some gaps. There's some things I need you to do. Now, maybe somebody left the role that they're filling. Maybe it's a new role. Maybe you let the person go in the role. But there's usually some gaps on how they're going to achieve those objectives or goals and how they're going to execute on those strategies. So that becomes to say, all right, here's what I want you to do, but here's some of the big gaps you're going to have to fill. Here's some of your key projects. So lay those out for them as you see it. Now, they may have some others they add on when they join your company and get to know things, but let them know the level of work. How many people who are watching this or listen to this have walked into a role and they were sold one thing and had no idea how many projects they were going to take on to be successful in that role, because pieces they kind of thought were there, because certainly everybody has that built already, is not there, and they have to build it. So now they've signed up to do certain things that they can't do, and they're on the path to failure. Let's not set people up for failure in the interview process. Let's get them set up for success by being very clear on what they're going to have to do. So now you're getting candidates who, at the top of the house, they understand the vision of what they're building for you over the next 3 years. They understand why we've created that position. They understand what the goals are in the short term in year one. They understand how your business is run culturally and contextually, so they can step in and not make those missteps that can be really difficult early on for a new person joining your business. And then let's help them understand what their priorities are. Let's show them what it is that they're going to have to work on, so they know the level of effort. So when they look at all this and they understand it, you've had a really incredible, effective interview process, because we've really nailed down what we're going to do. Now, everybody looks across, and when you start talking about bringing them on, everybody understands what the opportunities and challenges are in that role. And here's another little bonus step that I will give you. 2 bonus steps. One, when you have those objectives lined out, and we can measure those every month in our meetings with our people, we also can create milestones for those action plans and those projects they're working on. So now we have a basis for success for our one-on-ones that we're having. How many people just create one-on-ones, say, oh yeah, I'm supposed to have one-on-ones? Well, now we have a basis to say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Now we have a basis to say, here's what success looks like. Are we on that path for success? And who doesn't want that in their role and in their discussion with their boss? And what boss doesn't want to have clarity around what's important? That's why this one-page job description could be so effective for you. And here's the second bonus piece I'm going to give you. With these job descriptions written in the way that I've outlined for you today, have one done for everybody in the organization, especially on your leadership team, so everybody knows what's expected of everybody else. How much more can you get done when people aren't stepping on each other? There's a lack of clarity about who's supposed to do what. You can create that for yourself by creating these job descriptions, which aren't those old ones, which are great and descriptive and probably what are needed for some legal reasons. I don't know. What I'm talking about is getting your business built for success. So let's talk about it. Join the clearpathcoaches.com/community. Join the ClearPath Leaders Forum there. Would love to engage with you in a conversation with this. Or, hey, just shoot me a direct message. You can get me at Craig@clearpathcoaches.com, and let's talk about how you can start putting these pieces in place for your business so that you can go from being that accidental executive to the confident leader that you want to be. So that's it for this week, folks. Thanks for joining me on this week's ClearPath Leadercast. And again, join us in the community, clearpathcoaches.com/community. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.